Well, hello there everybody, welcome back to my room. My name's Mikey and it's time for another tutorial. Okay, so today I thought we could learn to draw a couple variations on your fighting anime and manga characters and basically cover one character that's very buff and muscle heavy and more of a power fighter and a grappler, and how that will come across maybe in the pose and the design, and also a character that's ever so slightly leaner, maybe more of a striker or a specialist, and how they can come across as well, and basically the slight difference between the two. As ever, this is going to be super simple. I'm going to be using some basic shapes to build up the framework of these characters, and then at the end we can put whatever design we actually want to on top of that frame. So if you want to follow along, grab yourself some paper. I'm using cheap printer paper, but quite a few sheets on the table to create a soft surface. Super cheap mechanical disposable pencil as ever, and of course maybe a cheeky rubber in case we make some errors further down the line. So if you want to grab yourself like a HB or a 2B or anything you've got at home, that's absolutely fine. I thought we could just dive in. So I've got loads of tutorials on the channel already about how to build up the different building blocks of female anime characters, and we're going to use a lot of similar things for the male side, but we're going to change up the proportions and we're going to change our attitude slightly from loads of curves to loads of hard edges to create more of a aggressive masculine vibe about the thing. But this will all be clear as we work along. So I'm going to start on the left hand side of my page with more of a power fighter character of some sorts. So I'm going to grab a head around about here. I'm going to start by drawing just a simple circle to make up the top of the head. And I'm going to try to make sure that these guidelines are dark enough that they come up on the camera phone, but we'll outline the main parts as we go along as well. And with this circle, I'm going to draw a center line that goes kind of round off to the right ever so slightly and drops just below the length of that circle as well to become the front center line of the face, and a line across the bottom which is going to mark out the chin. On the edge of the circle, I'm going to flatten off the side and imagine that this area here is actually now a flat surface, and I'm going to link down by creating a jawline that goes right down towards the chin here, back up towards the edge of the circle here, and then the center line of this circle facing ever so slightly downward. I'm just going to map the front of that shape to make it look like a sphere. So we've got this kind of sphere mapped down the middle, mapped across the side, and that tells us a lot about what's going on with our character's face. Just below this part is our brow line. So I'm going to put maybe just almost a whole circle underneath the brow, just tucked in there. Another one slightly flattened off in that side there. And that's really roughly where our character's features are going to sit as well. So firstly, let's make sure this is all in focus. Good. Let's start from here. This is going to be our big power character. So the head to body ratio is actually going to be really small head, really big body, bit of a lifter. So I'm going to imagine maybe a neck comes off the left, and I'm going to have like a center line or weight for this character, which is going to just be kind of a line that goes down here. It's going to be a character in motion. Maybe one of the arms is reaching towards us, and I'm going to go ahead and get a shoulder line that goes across something like this, and then I'm going to imagine about this far down a hip line that goes off in the other direction as well. It's always important to sometimes have your shoulder line contrasting the hip line angles to give the character a bit of pump and flow. Now I'm going to have a neck that just pops straight down off of here, a nice big cylinder shape that comes out like this, just like so, and then I'm going to get this great big body circle in, basically a real massive powerful chest shape instead of a very slight form. I'm just going to use that as the starting building blocks of what's going on. A center line over to the right, much like how I mapped the face. I'm going to map maybe the fact that the chest is off over to this side, and then we're going to have a great big kind of shoulder circle situation going on here. One bigger than the head sitting right up on there, and then maybe down the other side, on the other side of the chest, slightly smaller because it's foreshortened off down that side as well. This is how we're going to start to build things up. So I'm going to imagine that we've got a collarbone that actually goes right up towards his shoulder, somewhere along here, and then another collarbone is probably just going to be off background there. I'm going to join this neck up with some muscles around the back that brings it all together here and here, and then I'm going to just map out a bit of an area of the chest where we've got the front muscles right up to this center line here, curving up towards the shoulder there, and in a really similar way, a bit of side on of front chest muscle on this side as well. So now that I've got these big shoulders in, there's obviously a swinging motion coming up. So I'm going to go ahead and go straight over to the hand. It's going to be the closest thing towards us. And then I'm going to work back from the hand to actually get to the shoulder. So if I start with a kind of flattened circle shape around about here, nice and wide, I'm going to imagine that we've got a area off here, which is where this opened out reaching towards his hand will be. This bump here is going to be for the muscles around the thumb. And I'm going to create a thumb joint. It just comes off of here like so. And then we're going to imagine that this top area is the top knuckle edge of a hand. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 areas where the knuckles come out. But for a grasping hand, I'm actually going to start with one of the ends of the fingers. 1, just like so. And then maybe 2, just down here. 3, and maybe 4 is just out ever so slightly there. And I'm going to work back from these fingers into the hand. So I might have a zone up here, which is the center part of this finger. And then this is the bottom part as it all reaches in. For this character part here, I'm going to have the center part of the finger, part of the grasping shape that comes back and in like so. Same on this one here. The 2 middle fingers are often really similarly cast with your anime design characters. And then quite similar for the little finger, but it's just going ever so slightly further out. And that just creates this overall framework for the character's hand. Let's get some other lines in like so, reaching out or grasping. So to make it reach back to the shoulder, I'm going to go from the hand, just imagine a line down here, and then one just going back in around about there. And then here's a massive elbow circle somewhere around here. We won't actually see any of this, but this is the direction we're going in when we're going to put in maybe a massive forearm. So here's the main tubular shape that makes up the forearm, but it's foreshortened and it's going to be really muscled up. So I'm going to go really wide around on either side. This is a power character, just like so. Maybe there's going to be a bit of an elbow joint just off down the side there. And then a nice big, again, muscle group that's going to be all the bicep and other part of the arm linking in like so up onto this edge. And then we've got this big, powerful, swinging kind of Hulk-style arm reaching out towards us. On the other side, I'm going to get this arm in a moment, but it's going to sit behind the rest of this chest shape. So what I often like to do with these anime characters is go from the top circle here, go down to the hips and kind of work out what's going on with the weight of them there. Now you can create another sort of flattened out elliptical shape that goes sideways across like so for the hip joint. But what you might want to do is imagine like a slight V that goes down the middle and the front as well, down towards the junk, because this represents part of the area where the abdominal wall is going to be. And that's kind of like a sheet of muscle, really, that comes up from the rib cage of the chest, which is going to be around about this point on this character, like so. And then just draw the edges in, so it comes down here and down here. And then you can get the center line in as well to kind of show where all the muscles are going to be, which kind of follow all the way down. Then I kind of build in from the back. So we're going to have loads of back muscle here that brings the arms into the chest. There's a whole zone here where there's kind of like, if you imagine a zigzag line of muscle, where loads of muscle from the back reaches round and connects with the ribs and so on, like this. And then down here on this side, you're going to have things like the obliques just coming in, tracking that line, maybe a bit of edge down that side as well, before joining up with the hip bones down on this side and on this side. So there we've got this big swinging arm, this big massive setup for the framework of the character. This arm I'm going to have maybe tucked and pulled back in a bit. So I'm going to imagine maybe the line goes back down here before shooting out here to another great big hand. Not quite as big as this one because it's foreshortened, but it means another kind of circular shape here to roughly map it out. Another lump is going to go on this side where we've got all of the thumb area, and I'm going to go up and outward this time, I think, with the thumb like so. And again, another kind of grasping situation. So 1, 2, 3, 4 as I roughly think about where the fingers are going to start from. And then maybe I'm just going to start with the ends of fingers again. 1, and then further in 2, and then further in again 3 as it starts to tuck 4. And then on this little hand, I'm just going to work back from the fingers again, just like here, just like here. On this one, it's going to go down a lot more there before it comes back in on this side. And similar on this one, down before it comes back in. And again, it's just creating this kind of hand shape that helps map everything out. Now, I have done tutorials on how to draw basic hands from basic shapes, so that also might be a good starting point for you. But when it comes to a hand that's just in a general shape, you tend to start up at the wrist, draw the hand shape in, and then you tend to draw the fingers growing out in each direction. However, I find when it comes to like a grasping hand, or something that's like really clawing towards you, the claw, maybe get the hand in, but then start from all the weird angles you want the ends of the fingers to be, and then work back into the hand. There's all sorts of ways you can draw these things, but when it comes to grasping situations, I tend to work in the other direction, and often with a reaching hand, start at the hand, and then join it back up to the body. Much like here, I've got the hand in. Now I'm going to work back and maybe get a load of bicep in as a circle below this shoulder joint here for the character. And just be aware that there's loads, again, of foreshortened forearm going on right there as well. Loads of stuff happening. Okay, great. So with the legs of this character, again, I've got the idea of the weight of this character's body. So I'm going to just drop one leg coming probably off the bottom of the page down here. This leg's probably going to be much further out before maybe hooking back in that direction. And again, I'm going to start by imagining just a great big circle at the knee joints here and here. And then I can start to join that up with a great big tubular shape that comes off on this side like so. Maybe something really similar over here. And there's going to be loads of muscle over the top of the leg, so it sticks out quite far that way. Up on that side as well, before dropping down in this direction and having, for example, loads of muscle right around the gams and thinning out for the leg as it drops off the page, and then really similar, just coming down there. So the knee section is its own kind of lumped zone out here. It's going to kind of stick out from the rest of the leg and material. There's going to be a bit of a straight line indicated for the bone of the shin as it goes off there. And then there's loads of muscle groups that actually build up around the leg. But to keep it really simple, just know that there's a really big series of set of muscles over the top, your kind of quads area, and the rest of it kind of pulls back in towards the groin. But if we give this character like cargo or combat pants or something, just know that if you're going to have a really big muscly character, they're probably going to have quite big legs as well if they're not skipping the leg day in order to actually stand up and hold that weight. So let's just see how that looks through the camera phone. Just making sure it shows up. Brilliant. Already we've got a big kind of heavy wilder character. Now, I will do some tutorials, I think, in the future where we talk about absurdly shaped characters, where we just use really big crazy shapes like big circles, big squares, big triangles to express different qualities of a character. But right now I wanted to talk about two very muscly types. One really hench, one is going to be slightly leaner, and how it kind of expresses maybe their different fighting styles or their different genres of combat. So now that we've got this really big heavy type out of the way, we're going to draw a similar character that's going to be in a bit more of a more relaxed stance because they're a bit more of a whip fighter perhaps. Also stacked, but much more lean and maybe just chill. So again, I'm going to start with a head around about here. The head to ratio of this character is going to be a little bit better. So I'm going to start off again with a circle, relatively large on this side. Again, a center line off to the left now, which drops down below the circle to create the chin. And then from this circular shape that we've got up here, I'm going to map out a flattened off side section, bring the center line in across, and then just join this back up as it meets down to create the jawline of this character. Probably does a similar thing up on this side as well. And then now again, I'm just going to get that frame and flow. So the neckline's going to come down here, and then the weight's going to shift forward so that the stomach and guts area are sticking further out to the front, and it really throws the shoulders back to make more of a pose out of it. So to talk about what I'm sort of mentioning, we'll get a shoulder line across here, something like so, and then the other hip line is much further down here, really sticking forward, which means our legs are actually going to probably sweep back a little if anything. But when we get the actual main frame in, it's going to really show the pose and make it pop a bit more. So let's have the neck that's coming down off of this character. This one's going to be a little bit leaner. So the circle that I'm using for the chest is going to be still quite large, something like so. Just kind of really a big droplet that comes off of the neck. A center line to show where the middle front of all of that is. And I'm just going to hook up to create a rib cage space using that kind of design. And then in a very similar vein, we get the hips in now, with this part of the character, a V down the front to show how all of that is shaped and mapped, excuse me, and then just a muscle group coming up and reaching back like so. Now with this one, with the shoulder line, the muscles aren't too big and massive, so I'm going to have the back edge of the muscles drop down towards the shoulder line, and then the actual shoulders themselves, 2 circles, much more normally sized for this character. Again, if I just bring some collarbones into the top part of the chest like so, I can just draw in where these chest muscles are. Not too massive, just indicated to create a bit of a zone off the top of this character. This is again where we've got the ribs starting in, and this is where we've got the muscles of the stomach starting as well, depending on how much you want to draw the definition on your character going down the front. So on this side as well, we've got the back coming in as its muscles here. This is the area where the chest and back muscles start to work together. Down on this side, we've got the obliques and all of the area that goes down to the hip. And then because this is really thrown out forward of a weight, each of these legs are just going to sweep down, as far as I'm concerned, right off in this direction. So you can see already, compared to this character, which has a smaller head and much bigger shoulder joints, much bigger, thicker arms, and a much bigger barrel sort of chest situation, this one's already looking just a little bit leaner. There's 2 very muscled characters, but already distinctly different from each other. Even if only slightly, it sells a bit more of a different idea. So if for this character, I'm just going to have the arms sweeping slightly back and just down like so. And then same on this side, just off around the back of this character, maybe just coming in. It means that when I get my elbow circles in here, I'm not going to go so crazy big with the arms either. Back more to that sort of tube design to help link everything together. The shoulders, I'm just going to bring that shape more into that sort of meeting point you get with the shape of a muscle into the arm. And then if I go down to the forearms here, just bringing everything down into the hand, and the elbow circle is probably going to be off around about there. Get a little circle shape in for the wrist, back up the forearm, shaping round the muscle, tricep round the back to create these bumps. And then as for the hand, I'm actually going to swoop off and again create a character with some open fingers by just counting off where we've got the knuckle joints to the end of his hand shape. But again, not in a very stressed out way, just in a much more open and casual way. So I'm starting from the back of the hand, just building these fingers up like so. Down, out and up. Down and back. Like this. Just to create a character which is obviously very used to having its hands kind of by its side, but might kind of whip up or be a bit more dangerous at any moment. In fact, on that side it's going off a little bit too far to the right, so I'm going to make that a bit more of a down, back and up situation as well. And then on this side, just a bit of a curve of a bicep there, slight curve of a forearm as it heads over here as well, before we get to that whole wrist joint situation again, off on that side. Again, it's just going to be a hand just hanging down, doing its own thing really for this type of character. So they're completely separately, if I just make sure that's all joined up around the hip zone a bit better, like so. Lovely. They're completely separately. We've got this much more kind of relaxed or neutraled out pose. To be fair, this arm's actually a little bit out of proportion, so I'm just going to go ahead and erase that ever so slightly. And maybe just bring that, in fact, sod it, why not just let it hang completely behind the character, like so instead? Yeah, that'll do. And hopefully it gives you an idea that whatever kind of design we put on top of these will probably affect the style of the character or what we're trying to express. But already, just in terms of the building blocks and the basic shapes for most basic level of work we've got on these characters already. One of these is real power kind of reacher grappler. One of these is clearly still quite well stacked, quite well built, but a bit more reserved perhaps in their technique, a bit more of a technical fighter. So I'm going to go ahead and drop into some time lapse and just put 2 character designs on top of this just to show any example of what they might be, and I'll see you guys right at the end. And welcome back. So I've not really done much by way of actually rubbing out any of the construction lines for most of the part. You can see most of that's all still in here, but really it's all about just giving you guys the idea as opposed to creating any particular final piece. So I hope you found this tutorial to be useful and obviously gotten across the idea that you can create different types of fighter characters that both look like this character might be interesting in a fight, so would this one be, but you can tell already that they've got completely different fighting styles and different techniques. I've gone for a kind of almost more tribal Barrett Wallace if he had both of his arms and more cultural heritage, versus super generic school shirt kind of badass kind of character. So it's not really like an absolute crowd winner, but I just thought I'd quickly put characters on top of the framework. I do plan on doing in the future maybe a tutorial about really absurdly shaped character design. It's going to be a little bit more cartoony, I dare say, than anime style, although it can probably work across both, versus like a really kind of thin figure and maybe someone who's like double jointed or got super flexibility, and how those two types of fighting characters might compare as well. So stick around for the future, we'll get more tutorials out. Thank you so much as ever for following along, really means the world to me, for giving this video a click, give it a like and a thumbs up and all that stuff. Don't forget to come subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We've got loads of stuff going on in the future. And of course, if you want access to the artwork and all the other stuff, or just want to support me ever so slightly, I've got that Patreon page as well, because basically your tiny donations on that and the support help make all of this possible. It really adds up. So thanks a lot as ever, guys. You're the best, and I'll see you next time round. Take care.